Her thoughts and ideas have been documented in all kinds of media. She has been named an emerging leader, a powerful advocate for a variety of communities in Canada. All of this about my guest, who, still in her 20s, seems to have already lived more lives than most of us. Greetings, I'm Bill Moniz, and this is Winners, a Celebration. This program is brought to you by Liuna Local 183. Liuna, feel the power. We welcome Shireen Salti. Hello.
Hi, Bill. Thank you so much for having me here. It's quite an honor knowing you and being interviewed by you. I know you've interviewed some amazing people.
I share the honor, believe me.
Thank you.
How are you?
Very good.
Yeah? Busy?
Very busy as always, as you know.
Yeah? I can see it on your face. That
There's a
brain
lot
of yours
happening.
is never stopped, right?
It truly never does. There's like 50 tabs open. Yeah.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. You were born of Arab parents.
Yeah.
You were actually born in Jerusalem, but your family lived in the West Bank.
Yeah.
And you were there until the age of 15.
I was.
Yeah.
I grew up under Israeli occupation for 15 years.
Yeah.
While I was born in Jerusalem, I started realizing at a very young age that it was starting to get harder to visit my mom's side of the family, who still continues
Yeah.
to reside in Jerusalem
Yeah.
till this day. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to recollect a couple of major events during that conflict.
Sure.
But before that, I wanted to mention something about your parents. Your father was an engineer. What kind of engineer?
Civil engineer.
Civil engineer.
Yeah.
And your mom worked for a non-profit institution,
Yeah. The UN.
the UN.
Yeah. And her father did too, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
So this was a very professional family.
A hardworking, professional, very,
family.
very professional family. Yeah.
Well-to-do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Middle class.
Middle class for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, as we mentioned, you lived in the West Bank until you were 15. So you must have witnessed a lot of events because, as everybody knows, it's an area of
Yeah.
conflict.
Yeah.
Were there any events where you felt for your life?
So we call it the Nakba that started in 1948, which is a catastrophe, right? It's more than just a conflict. However, I was born in 1993, so I kind of around that time there were the Oslo Accords. There was starting to peace building starting to happen in between two nations. Towards the ends of the 90s, we were starting to hear that the U.S. was getting involved in other countries.
Facilitated by Bill Clinton,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the Prime Minister of Israel disappeared, right? And later we found out that he was shot for wanting to create peace between the nations. And
Yeah.
so really, that's when the war broke out in 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
They called it the Second Intifada. There was
Yeah. And you were still there.
I was still there. I was in Ramallah, and it's actually much worse at the time to be in Ramallah than Jerusalem. And I realized at a very young age that my cousins in Jerusalem were having a very different experience than we
Yeah,
did, even though we
yeah,
weren't that far
yeah.
away from each other, because of the military lockdown. So what ended up happening, they were looking for, Yasser Arafat. They were trying to search Palestinian homes, trying to confiscate land.
Were you affected personally?
Absolutely. I mean, if we talk about the pandemic, for example, everyone was affected because their life had to stop.
Yeah.
They had to stay at home because of a spreading of a disease. In my case, I was in grade 5 and I had to stay home because if I go outside, I would lose my life. And so the memory I have is actually my cousin chasing me down saying, "Don't go outside," because I woke up one day and saw a tank outside of my window, and I just took my bike and kind of chased after it. And I just remember my cousin saying, "Come back, like, don't do this." And my mom basically told me to not
Yeah.
play the bike anymore for quite some
Yeah.
time
Now,
after
all
that.
of this is happening around you. When did you become aware that this was really serious business? Because as a
Yeah.
child,
Yeah, when I had to wear a mask when the tear gas was coming out, we were hiding, me, my father, my mother, and my sister. I don't recall if my brother was even born yet. That's how vivid the memory is, but because he's 4 years younger than me. But I
Yeah.
just recall wearing this big mask that would protect us from smelling the
Yeah.
tear gas that was being sprayed at our house.
yeah.
Yeah, and the windows shattered, and so that's when I knew this was okay.
By the age of 15, you knew this was serious business, and you had some understanding of the politics and the.
And not only that, but it's also attending the school, Friends Quaker School, that gave me an understanding of global responsibility and global citizenship,
Yeah.
because I didn't study just the history of my country, rather also the history of North America.
So you mentioned school. You attended the American Quakers
Yeah, so
run
the Friends School.
private school.
Yeah.
So you must be a Catholic.
So my mom is Catholic, my dad is Greek Orthodox, and I'm half and half. I've been accustomed to celebrating Easter twice and so forth. Yeah.
A Catholic Arab.
Yeah.
This is something that a lot of people
Don't know about.
don't know about.
Yeah, that's what I worked very hard to debunk
they
that
think
myth.
Arabs are just believers of one religion.
Right.
But no, there's
It's-
a variety.
It's very true that there's actually a variety of Christian sects,
Yes.
Muslim and Jewish Palestinians, right? Jesus,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the best example, and people often have a hard time with that one.
Yeah. You mentioned your brother. So you have siblings. You have
I
a
do.
brother
Yeah.
and anybody else?
Raja, my youngest brother, and Rawan, my older sister.
Oh, so it's three.
It's three of us, and I'm
Yeah,
the middle
three of
child.
you.
Yeah.
And they all came to Canada at some point together as a family.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were 15. Now, this is a big change for you.
Yeah, I was very
A
sad
new
to leave.
climate,
It wasn't
a
my
new culture,
choice.
a
Yeah.
new language. You already spoke English?
I
by
did.
then?
I did.
Yeah,
I had
you
a
did.
thicker accent, though, much thicker. Yeah.
We all have an accent.
Yeah.
The obvious question is, how did you adjust?
Yeah.
It's abrupt, and you're 15. You already have formed some
Connections.
connections, some friendships, some habits.
Habits, hobbies also. Like I attended the Edward Said School of Music in Palestine as well, where I played the piano for 12 years before coming to Canada, and I
Yeah.
had to stop that. And that was kind of really sad that I had
Yeah.
to kind of figure out how to start from scratch all over again with new
Yeah.
friends
What
and
was the
family.
biggest challenge when you arrived?
Yeah, being the only, I think one of the few first generation migrants that are, born outside of Canada in that school, that was made up predominantly of third generation immigrant Italians, because it was a hard time for people to accept who I am and understand where I come from, but also it feels like I belong, right? Belonging was really the challenge, and stability as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you able to were you able to survive in school without having to explain that you were Arab?
It started being funny when I just made jokes about it, because I had friends that would come up to me and say, well, is that in Africa? And it's like, no, that's in the Middle East. Like, I'm shocked that, Canadian citizens don't know about this history. And I started understanding that there's actually so much more to do to raise awareness about my culture in
Yeah.
that space and in general. But what really saved me was my love for music, drama, and sports, because I was able to relate to them through joining those teams.
What about your family? In your bio, you say that you were always the spokesperson for the family. I guess they relied
I
on
say
you
that
a
in my
lot.
which bio?
I read some.
Oh, okay.
I read
Well,
some.
it was like I wouldn't say a spokesperson, but more so like an advocate for my sister when she, would be misunderstood in the workplace, or, my mom when she was having a hard time kind of being understood by her Canadian colleagues. And trying to, because we call it the 1.5 generation. It's the immigrants, the young immigrants that understand what their parents are going through, but also understand that Canadian society are lacking, this sense of who they are. And so it was like
Yeah.
this translating. I found myself being a bridge builder, less so of a spokesperson, but more
Wow.
so a bridge builder between those two
Even then,
cultures.
eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, what kind of so you were involved in a lot of activities, but what kind of student were you in high school?
Oh, a very talkative, loud student in high school. Loud.
What do you mean loud?
So the person that would probably, tell the teacher that doesn't make any sense, or, challenging kind of norms. So I'll start with this. I've challenged gender norms from a very young age, in the sense that I was a tomboy kid that wanted to beat the boys, not just the girls. And I can't, I loved it. I can't say that they felt the same way, but and challenging my teacher, I recall telling her, why can't I play with the boys? Like, I want to play with them. And so, very competitive, very ambitious, very energetic, very passionate from a young age, because I had to perform in front of like thousands of people. I think around like the age of 6 or 7 years old, from playing the piano to singing to dancing.
Concerts.
So they were actual classes that we took. It not
Classes.
even extracurricular
Class
activities.
presentations.
Yeah, and some of it involved competitions, national competitions. I remember winning the national grade 6 school competition across Palestine, the singing national competition. And so, being able to compete at a very young age, that's how I would describe myself.
Where is this challenging part of you come from?
I think like being the underestimated child, like being that person that, because I was like the skinny, short girl in elementary, people thinking that I'm not as strong as them or I'm not as smart as them. I also am neurodivergent, so I do think a lot differently than kind of the average person. And so wanting to fit in, wanting to belong, and wanting that sense of justice for not myself, but everybody around me. Yeah.
Something inside of you that wanted to compensate for all of that
Absolutely.
negative stuff.
Yeah. And
Wow.
only recently did I actually process sort of that this was an overachievement to compensate for all of that. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
In university, York University,
Yeah.
you received a master's in public policy administration and law.
Yeah.
Why these fields? As if I don't know. I mean, it's all
It's kind of
here.
obvious. Yeah.
Why did you choose this?
So similarly to how competitive I was, I really like competitive environments, and I knew that, it wasn't a choice for me to just become a musician or a dancer when I grow up, that I needed to do something serious as my career, to demonstrate also to people that I can do that too, that I can use my left and right side of the brain. And I actually finished both my master's in undergrad and another judicial administration degree by the age of 23. And it was almost like I was running around to make sure my family is proud and that they made the right decision to bring us here, because the main reason why my father came here was because of my education, and because he believed certainly that the only way out, the only kind of, and I wrote this in my personal statement, is I want to make sure that no kid goes through what I went through in high school, because I went through a lot of challenges being kind of misunderstood by my teachers. I recall my English teacher saying that I have to do English in the summer because, it's much easier to get into university if you do that course in the summer. And I was the only kid with an accent in that class, so I figured, I didn't know it was a microaggression then, but it kind of made sense when I studied equity and inclusion. And I did my master's in 2015, which is a very interesting time. Premier Wynne was in power in Ontario, but Justin Trudeau had just swept that federal win. And so we were starting to hear this rise in inclusion and equity in education. And I really wrote my personal statements around, I want to make sure every immigrant and refugee who comes to Ontario's education system doesn't have to be underestimated, doesn't have to prove themselves. Like, in fact, I was put into a grade 10 math, even though I was in grade 11. So I was actually in the first semester of my high school already competing at a much less position. And same thing with my master's.
But you rose at every level.
Every time.
Wow.
Yeah, because even in my master's, I was 21 years old, and there was, 50-year-old lawyers or public servants in my class, and
Yeah.
also kind of worked
that-
very, very hard.
Isn't that fascinating? Now, after your degree, you were selected, and I've chosen this topic because I think, from what I read, this was a very important time in your life. You were selected to be part of the Ontario Legislature internship program.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what this program is about? The internship?
Yeah.
For those who
Absolutely.
don't know.
So the Ontario Legislature Internship Program is a non-partisan internship whereby 10 interns are selected out of 2,000 applicants that apply every year that graduate from public policy graduate programs across the country to learn about the inner workings and procedural services of government from the perspective of the legislative branch of government. So not the executive, not the courts, the judicial, but the members of provincial parliament that wake up to govern and protect their writings every single day, but both on opposition and governance. So I had a really unique experience where I worked with both sides of the house, and no one gets to do that. You know, you join a party, you stay with it, but here we get to be this secretive, resource and we have to sign, an oath to
Yes.
to really respect
How long was
the
the program
legislature's power.
again?
I'm sorry.
How long was the program?
So it's 10 months. So you work 5 months with the government placement and
Yeah.
5 months with an opposition placement.
Yeah. Now, in your bio, I can almost hear pride in your voice saying that you were the first Palestinian
Yeah,
to be part of this program.
Yeah. yeah. And,
No
and
one else
this was a
from Palestine before?
no one else from York University. Well, actually, there was one person from York before me, but it was predominantly like the U of T or
Yeah.
McMaster kids. Yeah.
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 But
And-
you were not chosen because you were Arab. You obviously
No.
were chosen because of your brain and commitment to causes.
I think it was my interpersonal skills
Yeah,
because it was a
and your
professor
skill.
of mine, Dr. Peter Constantino, who became the director of the program, who kind of encouraged me to apply, as well as Dr. Naomi Kudo, Dr. Dagmar Sonikin, and so there were people that saw my ability to build relationships in the
Yeah.
master's program that actually encouraged me to apply to it.
If you were to choose one, what would it be? The main takeaway. What would be the main takeaway from all of this experience? These 10 months of intense work at Queen's Park.
Relationships are key. Often people do internships or start out their careers and they think, whoever they're working with, then they won't see ever again. So it doesn't matter kind of how it goes because it's a 10-month thing, it's over. But in this case, I knew that I had access to build relationships with really powerful people in this country.
Well,
Yeah.
so it was a very significant part.
Huge part. It is the foundation of my success for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I've looked at some of your awards. You have quite a number of them. I don't know how many, dozens. But which ones do stick most to your mind? Is this I don't even know if it's a fair question because
Yeah, it
obviously
is.
all the awards
Yeah.
are important, but are
Which
there
one?
some
Yeah.
that sort of stick
Yeah.
more to your mind?
There's one that made a really important impact in my life. It's the winning the major research paper award in my master's program because that one was basically because all the awards that I have won was for my interpersonal skills or leadership
Yeah.
skills, but that one was for my research skills, my peer-reviewed research that I published. So, and it was about the Syrian refugee integration crisis in 2015.
Yeah.
And so it was something very new and exciting, and it really opened up a huge discussion in the department and faculty around what is integration for newcomers.
I also read on my notes that in 2012 you received an important scholarship award, Lai Una Local 183.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming that one of your parents works for.
My father, actually. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he started out just when we came to Canada a few years into our integration experience, and it's the reason why we're all so successful. I'm so grateful for my father being part of this union, for the scholarship that I've received from the union to for my undergrad. I needed that financial support. It helped in a major way. Yeah.
Now, do you recall the night when you received the award? I asked this because last year I attended the event. It's huge. It's a gala
I still
dinner.
remember it.
It's huge.
It's one of the biggest events I've attended.
And last year they had something like 70 participants, awards that they gave. Huge hall, huge crowd. Do you remember that?
I do. I actually remember what dress I was wearing. That's how ingrained it is in my memory. And I also remember attending as an alumnus, like 5 years after, and kind of speaking after Minister Ahmed Hussein and saying thank you to my
you
father.
Went back to Layuna?
I did. They have invited me to be an alumnus speaker to before I think was it their 40th anniversary or of the awards? Yeah.
Now, it's an important event, and at last year's, as I said, I was there, and I had the opportunity of chatting with Jack Oliveira.
Oh,
you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the business manager of Layuna Local 183.
So grateful for his
And I
leadership.
invited him to reflect, it's a very short clip, on the importance of the event. And here's what he had to say. Let's watch.
I think this is a very important night. We're giving back to our members, our retirees. As you know, it's the children of our members or grandkids of our retirees. And I think at the same time, we're giving back to the community. I mean, here we are tonight with the future engineers, the future lawyers, the future doctors, the future politicians. So I think, what I always think about this is let's make it better, let's make it bigger, because that way we'll be able to help a lot more of our members and their families, and we'll be, able to even contribute more to the community than we do now.
A very important event that I'm sure will continue for a long time. It's a very strong union, and the boards believe in this cause of helping young people.
I am so grateful for the leadership of their team.
Yeah. Okay. Now we have much more to chat about, but before we continue, we'll pause briefly. Is that okay?
Sure. Let's do it.
Stay with us.
Welcome to Go Live TV, the first intercultural IPTV station that broadcasts over 50 shows in 22 different languages. Here at Go Live TV, you can now book your event at our venue. We have green screens, multiple sets and backdrops, including a fully equipped kitchen and a news studio, a photography booth, podcast and radio station, a stage with a 9x14-foot video wall, and much more. Book our studio now. Go Live TV, the only multimedia one-stop shop, offering everything you need to take your event to the next level.
We're back with Shireen Salti. And for those who were listening to us before the commercial break, you must be aware that this young lady is involved in all kinds of things. Yeah, you've had experience in academia, like the school world. Where you're very involved, government, your internship.
Yeah.
And private sectors.
Non-profit.
I'm not sure we talked about that, did we?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
Which private sector are we talking about?
So I've worked for Council of Ontario University, so it wasn't really a corporation, but it does represent, it's an association that represents all universities across Ontario. And so I did public affairs, so government relations. Right now, I am a senior advisor for a government relations firm called Provoke Public Affairs. And so the private sector experience came later in life after I finalized my government and NGO experience, and I just incorporated my own company as well.
We're going to talk about your employment in the present day in a little while. But before we do that, I'd like to talk about your advocacy role for a variety of communities. And I'm now going to your bio to see that you're seen as quite a strong spokesperson for First Nations, Palestinians, Arab communities in Canada, at the federal level of government.
Yep.
Talk to me about this advocacy role. First of all, I can see you as an advocate from your experience, but you've chosen First Nations, for example. Why?
Yeah. Well, there's so much actually intersectionality between the kind of injustices that First Nations and Palestinians face. So it wasn't kind of that far off in terms of developing clients or kind of groups that I advocate on their behalf. And so the Assembly of First Nations is one of them. And really the organization stands for amplifying the voices of First Nations from coast to coast. I think the key point here is that those injustices need to stop even in Canada, right? So when we talk about international development, it's one thing, but when we talk about our own home country in Canada, there continues to be, a lack of safe drinking water. There continues to be, missing and murdered Indigenous women. There continues to be the search for these children under rubbles,
So in practical terms, when you're advocating, what do? You go to Ottawa?
I go to Ottawa. I go to I meet with members of the Prime Minister's office. If you go to the Lobby Commission of Canada's website, you'll find the meetings, the public meetings I've had there. Because transparency. That's why our government is so great. Is that we have to be transparent about who we're meeting with and why, right? So it's not so much to amend the policy, rather to coordinate meetings with government officials for organizations that I work for, as well to build a relationship, building trust, because the big piece is that there is no trust between government and people right now.
When you go to Ottawa to advocate, you must carry in your briefcase a lot of knowledge. You have to know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So you do a lot of research.
A lot of research, analysis as well. So it's not just kind of, but also like weekly clippings in the media. So what happened in that week? Because part of the issue attention cycle, to grab the issue of a cabinet minister, it has to be in the news, right? So if, let's say, there's a whole event to mark and Happy Indigenous History Month to anybody who's watching and joining. But if there is an event that the Prime Minister is at with Indigenous people, it's really important that there's outreach done with those communities. And I help bridge those kind of communities together in terms of outreach and promotion.
Yeah. And you would know, because sometimes it's very hard to know if you're succeeding in the midst of all of this. Sometimes it's very hard to measure success because it's a complicated world. Is there ever any time when you say, yes, I did a great job and the results are here and this is what I wanted? Yeah?
The gratification is usually delayed. It's not just like any field where you finish the homework and you get the sense of success right away. But when you plant seeds, and this is the sense that I get from a bunch of communities, but when you plant seeds in terms of investment in grant writing, in public relations, in public affairs, and you do the thing over and over again, you'll start seeing policies either being amended or things being recognized, especially if there's a really strong bridge builder between an organization and the federal government.
For someone like me who watches what's happening mostly through the media, it seems that First Nations issues are being resolved. There probably some people will say they're far from being resolved, but there is some movement, isn't there?
I mean, I wouldn't speak on, that's a question for a First
them.
Nation person,
for
sure, for sure. And but I'm sure just like any community, opinions differ. But the facts are clear in the sense that there was a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, established, but there continues to be all these calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation, the 94 calls to action that have yet to be implemented. Yeah. And so we continue to have, lack of access to water and And these are big issues in
We know
our
the
own
stories,
home. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully with the passage of time, they'll be resolved.
Yeah, and the more advocates from outside communities, because really it's up to Canadians to also take this on as settlers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we have a tendency to pigeonhole people in positions, but I cannot help but think that here it is an Arab young lady advocating for First Nations.
Thank you. That's
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, Palestinian and Arab communities in Canada, I can see you as a natural advocate, right?
Thank
Or-
you. Thank you. I just, there's one thing that I really want to make sure there's somebody here I want to recognize. Her name is Sydney Oakes.
Yes.
She's actually the principal at Provoke Public Affairs who hired me on to do this work because I'm Arab, because I understand the issues.
Yeah.
And she actually is someone I met through this internship program in politics. And so when I talk about relationships, right? Yeah.
Okay, acknowledged. And you are really interested in newcomers, the immigrants that youth, women, LGBTQ plus,
Yeah.
all groups that are at a disadvantage,
Absolutely.
one time or another, right?
People who experience like suffering in terms of like not being accepted and not being understood and not feeling like they belong. And those are the people I'm interested in helping because really they have tremendous value in Canadian society. And integration is about social engagement, political engagement, and economic engagement. So when those groups succeed, all of Canada succeeds, right?
Let's look at your advocacy role as a business, just for a moment. How do people know that you exist and they can go to you?
Thank you. ShireenSalti.com is my personal website, and that has kind of all the services that I provide. Yeah.
Yeah. You're also an author,
Thank you.
as if all of this were not enough. You've written publications.
Op-eds, press releases, peer-reviewed research reports, various topics, the foreign credential problem that I witnessed my dad experiencing and others, but also the discrimination that a lot of people faced in the pandemic based on their ethnicity or race.
Yeah. Would you say that integration is a big issue for newly arrived? It's always an issue, isn't it?
You know what? The biggest issue is that it actually doesn't get studied by academics until 10 years after, right? Because how would they know if the person integrated? They have to wait. Whereas I'm interested in immediate solutions. And this is why I focus my entire major research paper in my master's on the social capital. How I wanted to understand, how do Syrian refugees build connections? Because Pierre Bourdieu was a theorist that I came across researching in my master's, and he was the social capital guru. He said that you don't have to be financially wealthy. All you need to do to be successful is to have social capital. And I was like, what does this mean? Started looking it up, and I came across bonding and bridging social capital. And this is me now, 21, 22 years old, thinking, so in order for my family to be successful, we have to be friends with not only Arabs, but non-Arabs. We can't just be in our community. Integration is more than just a sense of our community, rather the host society understanding the community and the community being open to the host society. And so all of these, I realized, refugees, privately sponsored refugees, for example, they get matched with a sponsor. I found in my research after interviewing 25 refugees that some of them are keeping their relationship beyond even the 1 year of financial commitment.
Yeah.
They're calling their sponsor and they say, how do I use a TTC again? And so they're still friends. Whereas government-assisted refugees were suffering much more because they're not seeing the government employee after that first month of arrival. And so I was like, what can we do? So I volunteered for the Together Project, which is a nonprofit that matches people like me and as a volunteer with a Syrian refugee family. And I become this cultural ambassador. So I was meeting Syrian refugees. That was literally my volunteer title. I loved it. I literally was like, this is what is needed to fix a gap in the system that is focused on immediate solutions. Because what was essentially happening every Sunday, I was heading up to a Thorncliffe Park, meeting Syrian refugee families in their buildings upon arriving to Canada, and taking them to dentists' appointments and translating for them, interpreting for them. And then 6 months later, they were learning English.
Yeah.
They didn't need me anymore. So they were
Which is
actually,
good.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and
it's
and
good when-
they were just with Canadians. So
Yeah.
it was me translating between Canadians and Syrians.
When did you set up your own business?
Jan-
Advocacy business.
I mean, it's a bunch of things. It's fundraising and advocacy combined. So it's writing federal grants, but also advocating for the organization to also seek that grant through letter writing and engagement with various.
Does your
sources.
business have a name? Obviously.
Yeah, Salti Consulting is
Salti
my business name,
Consulting.
and it was incorporated in January of this year.
Of 2023.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I also co-founded a foundation with Bisan Zobi, the Palestinian Futures Foundation, and
Yeah.
that's something really exciting as well. You can check out PalestinianFuturesFoundation.org and see all that work that I do to build the next generation of leaders to learn about self-expression and advocacy.
A lot of people at your age, I would say, go to work for somebody else before they set up their own business. In your case, it didn't happen that way.
I did do that. I've worked for people for 5 years out of
Oh, did
my
you?
internship
Oh.
program, and I just decided I can be on my own now. I'm ready.
I keep
Yeah,
forgetting you're an
yeah.
old person.
Oh, no, it's okay. I worked for a bunch of organizations from
Yeah.
2017 to 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a few months of self-employment. How is it going so far?
It's fantastic. Being financially independent is a dream for sure for any young girl like me. Yeah.
How were you able to? How do you set up a business? I'm not very good with that. How do you set up a business? Did you have help?
I actually just I think it's a characteristic of mine. When I want to do something, I just do it. I don't think about it. I think some people sit there and think about it and then they don't end up doing it. And I'm definitely, I do have a bias for
You're an
action.
action person.
Yeah, a bias for action.
Yeah. Tell me, what are the biggest issues you're dealing with these days?
Professionally, personally.
Yeah, professionally.
I think being a young person, right? Being a young person, showing up in these rooms. I'm always the youngest person in every single room I'm in. Every single room.
Just like in school, back when.
There you go.
But little do they know that you've got secret weapons.
Oh, thank you, Bill Munez. Thank you. I won't forget that one.
Yeah. Of course, we're told that you have hobbies. I know you outgrew camel riding,
It's my
but
parents used to take us,
you told me before in a conversation we had that you did travel quite a bit in Europe.
I did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
My two friends, just Karen Shoker and Daryl, we went to 5 countries, cities. We did London, then we did Paris, Lisbon, Barcelona, and I'm forgetting the last one.
You did a lot, though.
We did a lot. We
Yeah.
did so much together. It was
Did you
fantastic.
get the bug for traveling from there? Or you're not traveling too much these days?
I'm still traveling so much, but domestically.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Within Canada.
So within Canada, and our travel system here, it's costly and it's definitely challenging
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of getting around.
You combine work with travel? Do you do both?
I hop on a plane and I'm doing work right away. Yeah, yeah. I'm usually in the air doing work. I'm actually on more planes than cars. My friends always make fun of me for that one.
You mentioned that you did 12 years of piano playing in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
West Bank.
Oh, yeah.
You must be a good piano player.
Thank you.
Are you?
I not anymore. Like I had to stop because I was busy with this thing called a career of mine. But I still like whenever I see a piano, people just I right away I go.
What kind of music did you play?
I actually played Beethoven and Mozart and very classical
The
piano.
biggies, the
Yeah,
biggies.
yeah.
Singing.
Yep.
You
singing.
sing? You have a good
do.
voice?
I do. I sing and rap. It's like a little bit of both. I'm not a great singer, but not a amazing rapper, somewhere in between.
But you enjoy singing?
I love singing.
Yeah.
I love singing.
You
I think
told me
it's,
once you sing in a variety of languages.
I can sing in 6 or 7 languages. Yeah, yeah,
Dancing, clubbing, because you're young,
yeah.
because you can do it, right?
Yeah, and I have amazing friends, Nadia and Teresa, that know that this is my therapeutic time. They know that this is where I really just let go, right? Because the art of letting go is very hard, right? When you've
Yeah.
done so much in a very young age, you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to let go of some things. And so, dancing, singing, this is where I believe most young women should invest their time when it comes to facing challenges.
It's very uplifting,
It's
isn't it?
so amazing.
Yeah. How do you find the time?
You find the time when you're committed to making the time. I feel like when someone says I'm busy, I never believe that it's just you're busy. Like if you care about something, you will do it.
When something is a priority, you always find time.
Yeah, it's how you prioritize as well.
That's right.
So blocking time in your calendar is really important as well. Yeah.
I'm sure that in your busy life, being disciplined with time is an important.
It's getting harder by the day, actually, especially this year because of my new business venture. But I think this is something that I will continue learning over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I have written on this last page. Yeah, unfortunately, because it's the last page, because I've enjoyed this so much.
Oh,
But
me
everything
too, Bill.
that comes to an end.
Thank
right?
you so much.
I have a couple of things I wanted to tease your brain. You've had a lot of successes in your life, it seems.
Yeah.
If you could pick one reason among many, I'm sure, which one would you pick as being instrumental in your many successes? In your
I
life?
already said social capital and relationships, so
Yes,
I'll stick to courage and taking risks, because people think it's about the easy route, like what's the easiest way to get to my goal, but it's actually you learn that you'll have to take a risk and sacrifice something. So I've sacrificed a lot of things I did enjoy doing, like playing the piano, and I've taken risks in my career where I thought, I've moved cities for a new job, for example, and being courageous about exploring who I am, even, after my family brought us here. Yeah.
And when you use the word easiest way, you're already defeating the purpose, aren't you? The easiest way is what is the way to accomplish something. The easiest way is not necessarily the best.
It's not like straight. It's definitely a
It can
up
be
and down
It can be.
experience. Absolutely. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with the highs and lows and accept yourself. And once you understand, I think being self-aware as a leader is really important too, right? And I've had the privilege of being a leader at a young age. So understanding that knowing myself is actually really important, really, really important.
In a previous conversation we had in preparation for this chat, you told me that you've been influenced by many people in your lives, and you were very thankful for that.
So thankful for them.
Yeah. You mentioned one, a teacher, but so many others.
I
Your
mean,
parents were also
my family,
very
of
influential.
course. I mean,
Yeah.
Witnessing my mom and dad work so hard, even till this day, I can't believe how hard they work. Like, they're the most hardworking people I know. Leaders, mentors, I've had so many. I've outgrown some too, and that's part of it, right? You outgrow and you continue to build, and there's so many people that contributed to my success.
As I look at your life path, I think, on the other hand, that you've influenced a lot of people around you.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind of you to say. That's so kind.
Do you agree with that? I think
I want to agree with that. Sure.
Yeah, I think you have. It's inescapable.
Oh.
Who do you think you've influenced the most?
Wow, what a question. My sister, for sure. I mean, she's like, I can't imagine her life without me, and maybe she'll accept me saying that, like, as opposed to picking somebody else. But my sister, really somebody that I love deeply, and I'll always come back to ensuring that she has the support and and love to succeed in life. And yeah, I just remember being her first advocate as well. Like I remember being in grade 4 and she was in grade 6, so she's older than me. And I kind of stood up for her being bullied in school. And that was really, really how I started advocating.
And protecting her.
Yeah, and my mom too. Like I witnessed my mom kind of advocate for me because I was a misunderstood, loud child, but really I was just this, neurodivergent person that only pays attention when they're interested in something.
Yeah.
So, I also think I influenced kind of this younger Arab generation to find their own voice, almost like amplify their voice and the spaces that they can belong to. So you'll find every program I was involved in, whether the York University one or the OLIP one or the organizations that I served right after that, there were always more Arab youth that joined after me. So it's not always about being the first, but it's also making sure that you're not the last in those spaces. And I think that's the thing I've influenced the most, is not making sure I'm the last person in that space, that there will be someone after me.
Can you imagine when you reach 100?
Oh,
The many people that you've helped along the way?
Inshallah, Bill, I hope that does. I mean, I don't know if I want to live to 100 at this point.
Know, but it should. You still have a long life ahead of you.
Thank you.
I have to tell you that, and I say this with sincerity, that knowing you and knowing about your life path has influenced me.
Oh,
and
wow. That means the world.
Now, you may think this is a joke, but when I grow up, I want to be like you.
Oh my gosh, Bill, I'm like crying and laughing at this point.
No,
you're such
you're
an amazing
a model.
interviewer.
You're a
Thank
model.
you so much,
Yeah.
honestly, for all the work you do to also amplify voices of young people like me. Like it's thanks to people like you who said, come out and let's talk and let's have an authentic chat. So thank you so much for doing this.
A pleasure.
I appreciate you.
I thank you as well.
Thank you.
And I thank the audience for being with us. Until next time. Thank you.
Till next time.